Hey, my friends! I got another deck for us to look at. Another one that I stumbled on by mistake. This is not a review copy. I did buy this one. It is the Age of Witchery Tarot deck by Roger J. Horn. And how I stumbled upon this deck is that I've been reading a lot about the devil, in the sense of a witchy sort of attachment, in the sense of for me, in the sense of like the embodiment of everything that Christo-colonialism called evil, and everything that I've been called my whole life because I was a red-haired, left-handed, queer kid. You know what I mean? And so, began with something just spilled behind me. Began with Kate Freuler's Magic at the Crossroads. I just read the new book about Baphomet by the author whose name I can't remember. And then, you just sort of gather books. And so I finished reading this one, The Witch's Devil, Myth and Lore from Modern Cunning by Roger J. Horn. Roger J. Horn this is an independently self-produced book. I loved it. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's beautiful. It's just a great read. It's full of folklore. It's full of like contextualization. And so what has been really fascinating to me as I've been reading these books is, I guess, the sort of dawn. It's been a couple years in the making, really, but like I, for most of my adult life, thought that witchcraft was Wicca, which I just didn't. No offense, please. This is just a snarky thing I'm saying, because it's how it felt to me. Wicca always felt to me like de-Jesusified Golden Dawnery. You know what I mean? It's so much about ritual. It's so much about ceremony. And Gardner's Book of Shadows was half written, taken from Crowley, written by Crowley, no one knows. And just never connected to it because that was it was just like Catholic Church without the Jesus stuff, to me. And so I stayed the fuck away from anything witchy for a long time because it just wasn't what I was like looking for. I was looking for kind of a revolutionary way to channel all the things I was upset about into something like powerful. And it wasn't until like recent years where I'd started discovering cunning tradition, which is not really witchery necessarily. Obviously, American hoodoo, Black American hoodoo, Sherry Schoen's work, very influential. And through that, then started discovering that there was branches of witchery that weren't sort of ceremonial, that or had aspects of it, but that wasn't their primary thing, and that weren't necessarily about the other thing that drives me nuts, which is like the hetero penis vagina. The goddess fucks the god, has the baby, fucks the baby dies, becomes like that penile utero hetero stuff is fine if you like it. I don't find it divine. I find it exclusive. And in fact, so much of Wicca has been anti-gay, certainly, anti-queer, fairly white supremacist. I just found out that Doreen Valiente was in the North Front. Like, there's a lot of problematic stuff. And again, like, every tradition, of course, right? But, like, I'm only finding these things out now. So it's like, anyway, I'm rambling. My instincts were right, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But in these newer things that I found, like Horn's work, here's another book that I want to read, has been this much more political, much more aware, anti-colonial, to me, I can't separate Christianity and colonialism anymore. And even Christianity is a misnomer. It's Constantinism, right? So anyway, this book I really loved. And so that's my long-winded preamble. You came here to see a deck, and I'm giving you a lecture about faith. So if you see me talking more about witchy stuff lately, there's a reason, and it's because I've discovered that there's versions of it, branches of it, that aren't the kind of stuff that I just found cringe. really liked this book. Browsing Mr. Horn's website, I found that he created a tarot deck called the Age of Witchery Tarot, and I was delighted to discover this deck, and it is a printer studio deck, so it's POD, print on demand, and because of that, it's a little spendy for a deck. You can save some money by not getting a box. I got the box because I am a mess. It is all kind of woodcuts and versions of in the adaptations of woodcuts from like witchy, folklory, devil-y stuff, and I think it's a delight. It's a pip deck too, which I like. So let's start looking through the cards. You've heard me ramble enough. These are the backs. They are all in this two-tone, and I wish I had this for the witchy market last week. I made a, I'll throw a picture in. I made a crown with horns, sort of inspired by a book that I both loved and hated. And, I was going to wear it for the video, and you can't see it because it's too dark in here, but it's also not the most comfortable thing. So we have the Popess. I find this really charming. Now, it's not a diverse deck in many ways because it is focused on European, particularly sort of British witchery, but there's something in that I find quite subversive, and the fact that, like, the devil is in the details, as it were, is also quite cool. This Lover's card is actually a version of the cover of this book, and I love it. Why is the devil so interesting to me right now? Because, again, I am the devil in the way that the world has talked about me to me my whole life. You know what I mean? So, redheaded, left-handed, queer, went to Catholic school, was very connected, but everyone's like, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. And I didn't know what, you know what I mean? And so now, as an adult, looking back on that, I think about how everything that I was told was evil, I learned that from Christianity. And now I say Christianity is evil. So everything they told me was evil probably isn't. You know what I mean? Including me, right? So, like, that's kind of where this is stemming from, is this idea that, like, oh, you think I'm evil? Okay. Like, all right, that's fine. Maybe you should think I'm evil. Maybe you should be a little afraid of me. Oppressor, you know what I mean? Like to me, there's real power in that, and the idea of the devil kind of encapsulating that, and also being like the consort of, us evil, queers, women, people of color, right? Disabled people, all of the folks who were constantly being accused, principally women, of witchcraft, right? Today, to me, is like, there's also the fact that, this satanic temple, not the Church of Satan. I always have a hard time. Anyway, there's a documentary called Hail Satan ? About kind of the political movement of Satanism, which I'm not a member of, but is very interesting and very kind of subversive and very cool. And so there's a political aspect to that too. Love this death card. And this Temperance card, because it's not your typical angel, and I love this. So I find it very kind of ticklish in that way. Cool. This is the devil card. I actually was kind of expecting more from the devil card here, but it's really good. I forgot what I was saying again. Anyway, I that's my monologue about the devil. Why witchcraft has become sort of more interesting to me lately, and how ultimately this deck landed in my hands, and I really, really dig it. It's a pip deck, as I said, just like these. They're woodcuts. They're not just repeats. They are the sort of landscape of them is, and I like a little bit more diversity of visual in the minors. Might have been interesting, but this is, when you look at Marseille, it's the same thing. So it's like, at first I was like, oh, I kind of wish it was a little more like representational, but I'm over that. So the suits are rods, vessels, blades, and roots, which also is quite nice. This is a stang, which I've recently learned is a forked wand, meant to represent the horned god or the devil. in certain branches of witchcraft, which I think is quite cool. So here we go. This is the pips. They're pips. But again, a little bit more dynamic in terms of layout sometimes. So, like, it's not the most arresting visual deck, but again, you're sort of working with woodcuts. There's only so much you can do, and I really do like it. So again, I'm this is like a little like, oh, if I could do it differently, I would make these a little, these little landscapey things at the bottom. Like maybe each of those would be different. Maybe like bring them up a little, but like that's just nitpicky shit. Another nitpicky thing is that the knaves and the knights from suit to suit tend to look very similar. And so a little bit more kind of different choices in terms of the figures. I can't quite tell. You have to look at the I have to look at the title in some cases to see what I'm seeing. They don't necessarily scream their suit, and so a little bit more of that might be cool too. But again, very, very minor nits to pick. So here we are. That was rods. Here we are in vessels. And again, it's just very like fortune-tellery, and so in that way, like I find it, and I was really excited when I saw it. I knew it was a pip deck. I knew what I was getting, so I wasn't surprised by the minors. I was like, this is like a fortune-telling deck. This is kind of great, and that's why I wish I had it last week at the Witches Market for Halloween, because I thought, oh, this is perfect for that, but didn't. Here it is. It took a week to sort of print, I think, but then I got the shipping notice yesterday, and it was here today. So, Printer Studio. So, looking at them again, they're not quite as similar, but it's these masks or these dark faces, which has historical connection to what witches said devils looked like in witch trial testimony, which is what a lot of sort of what is now traditional, i.e. non-Wiccan British witchcraft, is very kind of influenced by the folklore around witchcraft, which, again, I think is really interesting, because I think folklore is more telling and more revealing about humanity than anthropological white gazy history, anthropology. In folklore, we understand what people were afraid of and what they wanted, and in folklore we find where the magic was. You know what I mean? And part of the thing is that the difference between folklore and scripture is just who gets to make the decision on what things are called. The Bible's folklore. I mean, come on, you know what I mean? It has a fairly consistent through line, but it's folklore. As are the Greek myths. As are the documents that tell us what happened during witch trials. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't invent this stuff. It was coming from somewhere. And so that's interesting to me, too. And so I think folklore, and when you think about history, right, and you think about colonization, folklore and language are the first two things that get steamrolled by the colonizer, right? It's your stories and your myths and your language. That's how they get you. They take away your communal, whatever it is, your mythos, your zeitgeist, just to get all grad schooly. Then they take away, your individual personhood, right? But first is the communal personhood. First is the folklore. First is the language. And when folklore survives, I think a lot of reconstructed faithways today thrive and survive because of the folklore that stands in the way of documented stuff that would have, told us what was really happening. You know what I mean? And that's true, I think, of African diasporic traditions, right? And so that's going to include all of like the African Caribbean, Candomblé, Santeria. I can't remember all of the names because names are very difficult for me to remember. Obviously, voodoo, all its versions, and then in the United States, brujeria. I can't. Again, it's just like things. I wasn't expecting to sort of bring up all these words. Normally, I prepare to say these words. Brauhai, this sort of Amish witchery, Germanic, like cons from the folklore. The other thing that reminds us of too is that Christianity colonized Europe. You know what I mean? And so like there should be some anger there too. Europe was not a Christian country, or continent. Constantine did that, and Christianity exists today because it was used as a tool of control. So, roots. We're in the suit of roots now. Come for the deck walkthrough, stay for the like rambling history lesson, I guess. Folklore, important. This is the point of that rant. So anyway, yeah, that's the deck walkthrough. I'll shuffle it and lay it out for you. So anyway, this is just my like rambly like monologue. I guess what I'm saying, or where I was going, is someone said to me recently, white Americans are displaced people. And we don't talk about that. And obviously we don't talk about it for multiple reasons. And there's obviously more important displacements that need to be dealt with, right? Addressed, repaired. But at the same time, like settlers are displaced as well. Colonizers are displaced as well. And we don't think of ourselves as settlers. We don't think of ourselves as colonizers. But we are, by living on stolen land, right? And we are displaced. Our ancestors, didn't and even those of us that, I guess what I'm saying is like Christianity caused that. Why did the pilgrims come here? They were looking to escape the persecution of the dominant Christian narrative, the dominant Christian force at the time. And what did they come and do? They came here and did the same thing. But they came under duress in the sense that, probably many of them would have preferred to just stay where they were, So we're cut off from our roots, I guess, is where this is going. And so there's an interesting thing there, too. I think I'm not trying to center, white European trauma, right? Like we are the cause of most of the world's trauma. But what I mean is that we are also displaced people. And as a result, there is trauma there that needs to be looked at and explored. And that comes from Christianity. And we should be angrier about that, I think. I guess is what I'm saying. And so the devil, right? The devil is that icon, in a way, of what was taken away by Christo-colonialism. It's also an icon of, or he or they are an icon of, she, certainly, spirits, divinities that existed prior to Christianity and that were turned evil by Christianity to scare their believers away. And I think I've talked about the book Slewfoot recently. One reason why I loved that book was because it told that story in a way of being cut off from your magical self, right? But the thing that was awful about it was that it never acknowledged what Europeans did to the indigenous folks, the folks that lived here already, and then went on to where they were depicted, and there's only one Native American or indigenous, Native American is not an appropriate term, indigenous person or native person who has a name, and the character is an alcoholic, which is a thing that has happened, right? Colonialism caused that, but it's not a good depiction. It's not a nuanced depiction, and it's Queen Osset once said to me when I was talking about a card I didn't like in the Urban Tarot, she said, this is how they see us, she said to me, because I was talking about the card, and I said, something about this card doesn't work for me. And she said, because it's one of the only few black people in the deck, and they're in prison. So the only depiction of blackness in this deck is someone in prison. And I said, right. The artist is trying to create like this political statement, which is true. At the same time, it is the only, not the only, but one of the few depictions of a black body in that deck. And this is the same thing with Slewfoot, was that while the white European witch character and even the spirit character are painted beautifully, richly, deeply, the indigenous character isn't. Gets very little screen time, page time, and is a stereotype. And then we never even discuss the indigenous origins of spirituality and folklore. And on top of that, the book kind of takes the track that all of humanity is shitty, and a return to nature is the way forward, which negates the fact that all of humanity isn't shitty. Colonialism is shitty, right? End scene. So here's the cards laid out again, and bravo! I love this deck. I think it's very cool, very fortune tellery, Halloweeny for sure, but not only. I love it. I think it's wonderful. So, and I really recommend The Witch's Devil by Roger J. Horn. So, not related to the deck, but tangential. There is a guidebook you can get on Roger's website. I love it. I really do. It's quite cool. Very specific. I don't think I would use this for every reading, but just a really cool deck, and I love it, and bravo. So, there you go. Another Tom Benjamin craziness. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care, be good. We will talk soon.